Welcome to Void Log Index 3. This is the series where I share the business and development process of building a billion-dollar gaming franchise called Void Pet that's going to rival the likes of Hello Kitty and Pokemon. We just dropped the first piece of the game, which I'd like to share with you today. I've got my pet here called Keckers, and if you've been following along, you may have noticed that there's a lot more information on my pet now, and that's because we gave each Void Pet their own DNA. So my pet likes to receive head pats, and this is actually not just random text. This is specific to your pet about certain attributes it has. So instead of displaying some numbers, flavor text to indicate that. I'm not going to say which stats are used because I want that to be kind of a secret, but just note your stats are used to compute what your pet likes to do. Each pet has a random birthday, and if you go more about your pet, you can see when your birthday is and how long ago you met your pet. X sign is computed based on that. Keckers is also easygoing and ambitious. Those are two more flavor texts that signify a certain attribute that he has underneath the hood. As we know in the real world, size matters, and it does in Void Pet as well. So there's a height and a weight, and based on where you are in the bell curve, because that's how we assign the weights and the heights, that determines how big your actual pet is in the frame here. The smallest pet's around this size, about 40% the frame size. And this is about as big as Void Pets get, but remember the two ends of the spectrum, the smallest and the biggest, are rare because it is a bell curve. But we want to make it this way because you can have a super powerful Void Pet that is indeed a very small chode, or you can have a very weak pet that's just a ginormous egg. This number is Kecker's gender. This symbol is his orientation, and if you look closely, you may recognize some logic gates. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Emoji used to recognize the chemistry this pet will have with other pets. And lastly, this is the element. So this is a fire element for Keckers. Every emotion will have the same element, so all angers will be fire, at least for their primary element. Now, these three are going to be used for breeding, which is going to come down the line. How it exactly works, I'm going to be leaving that up to you to figure out. Each pet has a mood which you can alter by playing with it, which we'll get to in a second. The heart up here represents the bond between you and your pet. The higher the bond, the more likely your pet is to listen to you, the more things you're going to unlock with that particular pet. This was also an absolute nightmare to code, by the way. This animation broke on Firefox but worked in Chrome, and I actually died trying to fix it. It works by masking a heart and a box. You can see the little box spinning there. That is how it kind of flows, and I give it rounded corners so it looks really smooth. You can't even tell that this is a box, and it looks like kind of a nice flowing liquid motion. But on Firefox, this doesn't like to spin around itself very easily. You have to touch this transform origin property, and it had to do pixels because it doesn't like percents, and it was a whole nightmare. Anyway, the last part here is the skills. These are the skills you use when you're fighting other Void Pets. The battling isn't out yet, but we basically laid the foundation for all these stats, skills, the things you're going to need when you battle. So that is going to be coming up next. Okay, let's play with Keckers now. So if I play with him, there is 8 different activities that I can do with him. The first one you're probably going to want to do is sleep Keckers or whoever you're playing with. Because when you sleep, it's going to basically just randomize your stats. And the purpose of this is if you don't like your stat spread, you can change it. Or if you just don't like your pet's feeling, and Keckers is currently depressed, I can change it. He's still depressed. He's now really sad for some reason. If I just want to reset it, I can just do this a couple times and see the ones that I get. Also, you notice I've been cranking out some animations. I got some sheep because he's sleeping, and then I press it, the eyes come out. Yeah, pretty cool, right? All right, let's go back. And I'm going to draw. This one's a really cool animation. So if I draw with this, I can see Keckers draws a little guy here, and he draws himself, right, in different orientations. Yeah, pretty neat, huh? By the way, the way this works is I have an SVG of Keckers, and he basically math.randoms the outline, and that's how he randomly draws himself. Pretty cool. Anyway, so this affects the stats. He's getting a little delusionally hyper. We can go back. We can do some other things. Let's do some dancing. Yeah, let's go Keckers. Woohoo! This is doing 2 things. Number 1, I'm playing with him, changing the stats. And 2, let's go back. Let's cuddle with him now. Cuddle, cuddle, cuddle. This is also going to be increasing my bond level with him. But I can only increase my bond level with him twice a day. Well, once a day, but there's 2 things that do it. I already played with Keckers today, so I'm going to jump to Dev and play with Angie and show you what happens when you play with your pet for the first time. So let's play with him. Let's show you a new one. Let's lift with him. Lift. So you notice it increases bond by 16. If you notice your pet getting a different amount of bond XP, that's because he is more or less difficult to play with and increase, and that is normal. That's just how pets are. Satisfaction boosted. I'm not going to tell you how you get that message, but if you get your emotions into a certain range, like here is meditating Angie until he was the perfect. Look at that. Angie's feeling like a boss right now. It will boost one of your stats. And if I come over here, back to here, my skills, I can see it's boosted here. My satisfaction after doing that. And so that gives you a bunch of bond XP if you get them to a particular range of emotions. So give that a try as well. That is pretty much the update. You can now play with your pet and affect these different attributes. And your pet has this DNA now, and you can see kind of some sneak peeks of who they are and what they have that is going to be used later when you start battling. Let's talk about some of the tech now. I was using React Spring for some of the animations, but we recently just switched over to Framer Motion because we want to do these basically path and ellipse and all these SVG kind of animations, which is how this guy kind of like goes back and forth, is much easier with Framer Motion because they handle basically the arity of points in SVG for you. That probably made no sense, but here's what I'm talking about. So this is the first SVG, this is the second SVG, and these are the two frames. The animation library is changing between these two SVGs to create this motion that this guy is doing here. And so when we're using React Spring, it didn't work as well because it kept breaking and we had to keep fiddling with the SVG, but Framer Motion, you just pop in, it works great. So I've been using that for all the animations now because of that. I also switched how I was hosting the front end. Originally it was on just a VPS, but when we pinged the Discord of 150,000 people, it crashed. The obvious choice since we're using Next.js is to host it on Vercel, but I didn't end up doing that because I remember when I was looking at the pricing, it doesn't look like it's there now, so maybe it changed, but their bandwidth was like $20 for 1 terabyte of bandwidth, which is absolutely bloody Mary highway expensive, and I just could not get behind that. And I just knew, like, once you get to the point where you're paying that amount of bandwidth, like, it just wouldn't work. It would have to switch off. So I was like, I'm not even gonna bother setting up on Vercel. So I was like, let's see if we can set this up on AWS. And I found this package, and it's been working pretty good, that uses Lambda and Terraform to set everything up for you. It's a bit complex. Like look at this chart. Disgusting. It's a bit complex, so I actually don't like it. I would prefer if I could just host this on like edge functions on like Cloudflare, but Next.js is not that easy to set that up with. But no, I'm stuck with whatever this spaghetti chart is. But it actually has been working really well, so I actually do like it. And this is just kind of how you have to do it if you're on AWS. Like this is not hate to this package because this library has been doing great. This just happens to be like the best way to do it on AWS, and gross. Of course, after we switched to using serverless and the front end could scale, the next thing to die was the database. So this was the CPU graph when we pinged our Discord to try out the new release. And you'll notice that we got to around 60% over here. Things just started airing out in the console. I kept getting this error that said timed out fetching a new connection from the connection pool. Current connection limit 5. So I'm using Prisma, and it turned out they just limit the number of connections you can send to the database by 5 by default. And so that was just throttling myself pretty much. But right around here, I changed it to 40 connections, and that's when we just absolutely skyrocketed to 100% CPU on this VPS, and it could just not handle it whatsoever. And so on this, by the way, it's the database and the server, but the database is the one that's getting wrecked. And so I have this on a CPU optimized 2 CPU, 4 gigabyte memory. This is the guy that's handling things. It could not handle it, absolutely died. So I resized this. I was like, you know what, we need to just get a massive machine. And that's what the CPU usage is. So then it was fine. That's when I switched it to this guy here. 16 gigabyte memory, 8 CPUs. Then we could handle people actually using the website. By the way, memory through this entire thing was absolutely fine. So really just the CPU getting wrecked. So the CPU optimized is the way to go. I also did all of this while people were trying to use the website. Like we pinged the Discord and I was like, oh crap, the machine's too small. CPU's getting wrecked. Let's change it right now. So next time I'm going to just like resize this to like the fattest size they'll give me for like a couple hours while everyone wants to try it out. And then when that's done, I'll just resize it down, and that works great. I need to research how many connections I should be allowing to the database given how many CPUs, memory things I have, and what I should set the timeout to. So if anyone has suggestions, let me know. I just arbitrarily picked 40 because that's like a bigger number than 5. I might also start doing some caching with Redis, but it might be a little premature because also what I was thinking is if all these unique people are trying to access things at once, Redis is not going to really help because it's going to be caching all these people's requests, because it's not like one person is trying to receive the same information over and over, at least yet. I think that's going to be coming, and so when that comes, I'm going to add Redis. But for now, I'm like, oh, we just have 150,000 people trying to access their information at once, and that's why Postgres is getting wrecked. So I just need a fatter Postgres that can handle all those requests, is my thinking. We also redid our merch store. My mom told me that yellow was not my color, so I was like, all right then. So we switched to black, and also we upgraded the fabric. It is now on par with other tech shirts that I like to wear, so I'm very happy about this. So if you want any of the new merch, we have 3 new tees, a fancy champion hoodie. You can check it out at shop.voidpet.com. That is it for this Void Log. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned until next week or next month, whichever it is, where we are going to be doing battling.